Lego. Yo, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday night. We're back with another stream. We're here to talk about some potential waiver wire targets, maybe some trade conversations. We got. Oh, hang on one second. I got an email coming through here. Oh, it's Gruden. Oh.
Hey,
Hey,
I don't. Hey, if you're getting emails from Gruden, I'm questioning your character at this point.
it's like a circumstantial, like, yeah, guilty by association kind of thing at this point.
Oh, dude,
Um,
they're really out there.
Kind of wild, kind of wild. So yeah, we've got some things, to touch on. I guarantee you they're all going to be football related, but might not all be football conversations. So, um, anyway, we'll start. We're gonna dive in today, just talking about some of the observations we had from last week. Not a ton. We're not gonna hyperanalyze everything, but we will be talking about, um, some of the mentionables from the games that we saw last week and how they might affect us going forward. If you are new to the channel, we really appreciate you guys hitting that like button on the stream. That's gonna help us. If you want updates or notifications to let you know when we go live, definitely hit that subscribe button. Um, I don't know if it's personal account settings or what it is, but we actually were lucky enough and thankful for 5 subs last stream. That's awesome. That's a new PB there. We were pretty pumped about that. So definitely appreciate that. The only one that we had pop up for us was Elva, so we appreciate that, Elva. Everyone else, sorry that I don't have your names popping up. I'm not clear why, but we appreciate you guys too. So, um, all right, well let's dissect this last week here. We'll start that way and kind of talk about what we think that might mean going forward.
Yeah.
What's the first game we want to touch on?
Well, I don't know. I think some of these games there's just not really a lot to learn from. Just or teams, for instance, the Bucks. Like, there's really not much I need to say or we need to say that you're gonna get anything meaningful out of. But some situations and some things like that that are worth talking about a little bit anyway. We might as well start with the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. So he's obviously going to be out for a while. I think they said like week 10, right, was the last thing I saw that he might potentially come back around that time. That seems like that's just something they're hopeful for. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So obviously, that offense is going to change dramatically. I know Geno looked pretty good when he came and filled in for Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson was out in that game. But I mean, maybe Geno learned some things from Russ, and maybe he's an improved quarterback under a guy like that. That is like that can happen. But if we're betting on it, we're probably betting that that's not going to be the case. It's going to affect some of those people. I feel like I don't know about what your opinion is on the. Let's go with the receivers first, and then we can talk about the running back situation. But with Lockett, I'm most concerned with Tyler Lockett. But the thing is, even though I say I'm concerned with him, and I'm obviously a little concerned about Metcalf too, I still think they're both just so good that they're going to be able to make enough happen. Lockett was already feast or famine, and I don't know that that'll even change. Like that, things might just stay the same course. But with Metcalf, he still feels like to me he's a little bit safer, even more so now with than Lockett with this quarterback change. I feel like you're still playing him and you're not questioning it. And Lockett's probably somebody you wait and see on for a week, see how it looks. How are you going to approach that?
I mean, with those guys, you're in a position where you can't really do much about it, right? So you're looking at it more like if you're going to be starting them, or if there's other guys that maybe you have that you're more inclined to start with this new situation. We have seen a couple quarterbacks that have improved over the last 4 or 5 years, kind of under the radar. Like Teddy Bridgewater's gotten a little better each of the last couple years. Jameis Winston, I think, has taken some steps forward. I think a lot of his production in Tampa Bay was kind of just slinging it, and I think he's
It's
gotten
everything.
yeah, I think he's gotten a little better. So I mean, it's possible. We both have talked a little bit about like Russ's deep ball, and like that benefits these two a lot. So I mean, they're going to take a step back to some degree. I think I agree with the consistency thing, but it's a good point to say that like that's already kind of how it was. So I mean, for me, it I think it makes Seattle more interested in running the ball, so I think there might just be fewer pass attempts in general. But Seattle's defense is kind of putting that team in a position where they don't really get to choose either. So, I mean, they're, probably an average defense if you're giving them a little credit at this point.
I was going to say, you probably give them credit if you're calling them league average. I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're
Not
going to
very good.
have to throw it to some extent anyway. I guess on the surface, I'm kind of wondering if, like, the first place my mind went was like those guys are probably still going to get the bulk of the production, but like who else might surface with like a new quarterback? There might be some new tendencies. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like a Gerald Everett kind of stood out to me, where it's like he's capable. They recently acquired him. I'm not saying like you need to have a guy like that on your roster. Lockett and Metcalf are still going to be the two dudes, but like maybe Everett gets a few extra looks with a new quarterback and some new tendencies. I mean, that's something I might keep my eye on.
New tendencies are pretty common when you have a quarterback change, that's for sure. But that tendency also, like you said, it could be a tight end position like that for them. It could be maybe Lockett goes from the deep ball here and there type of situation with Russell Wilson, and they just connect on him because they're so efficient together. And maybe Lockett ends up getting peppered. Like that could be something we don't see coming that could happen because he doesn't run all deep routes. It's just what works for them.
Well, and his
So,
speed
it
works
could be
on those
something like that.
crossers too, like those
Oh, yeah.
drags and yeah.
That stuff they used to do with Baldwin, and then they will do that with Lockett too. Like maybe Gino just leans that way. Maybe this first week, we're concerned with Lockett, and we're not so we are still a little bit concerned, but we're not so concerned with Metcalf that we're not starting him. We're not going that crazy.
Right.
But then maybe Lockett ends up with 12 targets, and we go, whoa, hold up now, hold up now. So that's kind of where it's at. It's just an unfortunate situation you got to deal with if you got these guys. You can't trade them. I mean, maybe you could. Maybe there's people that want to still buy on that, but I'm not necessarily saying that's what people would even need or have to do. It's just something you have to roll with the punches on this one. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, you're gonna leave them where you had them for now, right? And then you're just gonna kind of adapt to the situation.
Yeah, you let it play out, and then you adjust accordingly. Is that running back situation over there too? So we've got Chris Carson still, like it's like an in limbo situation. We don't know what's going on with him as far as how long he's going to be out for. Is he going to miss this next week or not? We don't know. I know that because we don't know, I think we're going to talk about waivers in a little bit, but we can mention this guy's name now. Like Alex Collins got plenty of work this past game, and I would hope, like if I had Chris Carson, I definitely want to have Collins on my roster. And if I don't, I might even consider just talking to the person that has him and maybe just seeing what the price is. What do you think? Because the thing is, like, if Chris Carson ends up missing multiple weeks, or if this becomes a situation where, like, we don't know that it's a big deal or not, and then all of a sudden they go, actually, he's on IR, which we don't know that that's going to happen. It might not, but just precautionary. If that happens, Collins' price it goes way up. It's like a premium now, all of a sudden, compared to what it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the running back situation, and Collins is the clear guy to benefit from Carson missing time now. It is a neck injury, which is weird, and they've made it sound like it's not supposed to be a long-term thing, but we're still talking about it. So definitely something that you're planning for the worst on right now until that changes. My long-term target, if this like hypothetically, if this ends up being an IR thing, I'm still thinking I give the edge in production to a Rashard Penny, but I think it's going to take a while. And I think it's because like the dude hasn't been right for a year and a half. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he looked really good the last time he was playing football. But with as long as it's been since he's played football, there's been a couple little blurbs about how he could be activated as soon as this coming week, but it seems almost like a panic move or a desperation kind of a thing, like, hey, we really need him. And he's like, there's no way he's in football shape right now. So like that's going to be like a 10 to 12 touch situation, and then you'll see kind of how he handles it and go forward. So like Alex Collins is the dude to have right now. if you're trying to, ensure Chris Carson. And I think he is capable of getting you some production in that role too. I mean, I think it's definitely something I'd be considering. The penny thing I bring up because it's like more exciting, I think, like as far as potential upside goes. But it's going to take a while to get there, and we don't like that. But like you could go at him this week, and he's not going to be worth starting for a month. So
Yeah. And when he comes back, he'll definitely get hurt in the first drive. No doubt about it.
well, and this neck thing could clear up by then too. So like
It might.
most likely a non-factor. If things shape up in a way that Rashad Penny has an opportunity and he's ready to take that, I think it'd be very interesting. But we're not there.
No. Nope. All right, let's move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is Marla Mac. Hey, bro. Marla Mac going to the Chiefs? What's going on over there?
Chiefs are interested in everybody. I don't even know,
I
but
feel like they're the new Tampa Bay.
I mean, him going there would be interesting because, like, we were just saying last week or last stream, like, Clyde can run against the easy teams and he can't run against the tough teams, and they need that. I mean, I think that's a big part of why the Chiefs have been struggling.
It definitely is. The fact that they can't run the ball, like that's hurting the defense. That's hurting even the offense. I feel like the Chiefs look like they're pressing a little bit. Like even Mahomes, I think he's making mistakes that he normally wouldn't make because to me, like they look like they're pressing when they get down, especially like in that Buffalo game. It's a perfect example. You could tell how frustrated Patrick Mahomes looks every time they cut to him. It's like the new Aaron Rodgers thing. Every time they cut to him, he just looks like he's pissed off about something that happened on the play before. Like they really feel like they got to make something happen, and they're just not. They're not really able to run the ball every week. They're not able to run the ball like they want to. Marlon Mack would be an immediate threat, and we always have to preface it because we said this when we talked about Marlon Mack last week or the week before? We don't really actually know what he is now compared to the last time we saw him in a full-time role because he had been out and hurt for so long. But, they gave him a few more carries this past week and looked pretty good with those carries too. So if we just assume that he still has it, then he is an immediate threat, in my opinion, to for the lead back position over there, like even when Clyde comes back. So, yeah, it would be interesting. You just wonder, like when you get a guy like that in there, if that happens and they're still not able to really, like if it still all looks the same, then you do start to wonder if it's how much of it is running backs and how much of it is also maybe just the way Kansas City runs their offense. Because I have had that always in the back of my mind. Yes, I don't think Clyde's like that special of a player, very good. He's just okay. But maybe partly too that Kansas City offense, maybe we think that their running back position should be more productive than it really can be. I don't know. But
Well, their big emphasis this offseason, which was as much a concerted effort this offseason as like I've mentioned a couple times that Baltimore 2 off seasons ago, like their main focus, and it was like so clear, was to defend Derrick Henry, right? And I think this year, like just as much so, the Chiefs made it a point to protect Patrick Mahomes. Like they just like cut both of their starting tackles. Like they made some other moves. Like they did what they thought they needed to do to fix that because the Bucks ran wild on them in the Super Bowl and put a lot of pressure on Mahomes. What I'm kind of wondering now is if you were maybe a little too focused on pass pro and these guys aren't really the ideal run blockers, and you're out there with a bunch of pass blocking specialists and you want to run the ball but you're not prepared, like you're not built to do so at all. It's kind I'm kind of getting that vibe from the situation. I do agree that I think Marlon Mack is going to be somebody that would demand touches, early down work even when Clyde comes back, so that's still interesting to me. um I think they need to be able to run the ball. I just don't even know. Like we talk about other guys as far as like help blocking in the first place. My mind goes as tight end, but like we don't view Travis Kelce as a blocker at all. Really, he can get in the way and do a chip here and there, but like there's not much help to be had either. I guess is what I'm saying for like run blocking either.
I think he's a good run blocker, but he's so good as a pass catcher, and they need him to be at the same time. That it is more like if he's not running a typical route like in the slot or something, then it's typically, what do they call those, like chip routes, where a delayed route,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. So like Marlon Mack in a situation like that where you're more relying on the threat of the passing game for your production than like the blocking ahead of you. I think Marlon Mack fits that role a lot better than Clyde Edwards does. I think Clyde's a little smaller and he, is more looking for open space, and Marlon Mack's a little harder runner, and I'd be really interested in having him out there in that situation.
Yeah. Marla Mac is a a better pure runner than Clyde. There's not even a doubt in my mind about that. I think I think if this injury hasn't really affected him much, he's a better player. He's a better player than him.
Yeah.
And that offense could be scary.
Oh, for sure. And with the threat of the passing game, I mean, the way that teams have been defending Kansas City has been a part of it too. In the last few weeks, the defenses are refusing to bring safeties up. They're keeping two safeties deep. I mean, it's been talked about like 15 yards down the field, and that is like that would have a capable running back's mouth watering, right? Like, oh my God. So I like the
run.
opportunity.
They would run enough to break that up.
Yeah, and something would have to give.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a good opportunity there. I'd be pretty excited if he went there. I think it's worth noting that this week, or this most recent stream, was the first time that we've given Clyde some credit, and he has a knee injury and goes on IR.
I know. And guess what? Never doing it again.
Never. Listen, the writing's been on the wall. We knock you. You go off for 2 weeks. We give you some credit.
Bum. You've been a bum, and we knew it all along.
Yeah. So that happened. That had to be acknowledged. But no, man, I'd be really interested in Marla Mac out there.
Guy gets hurt, we call him a bum.
Listen, it's not that he got hurt. It's when he chose to do it.
It's a lack of production he had before he got hurt. That's why you're a bum. Marlon Mack would have had 65 and a touchdown by the first half. You didn't do shit.
We want Marlon Mack to be good too, but I think it's real. I think if he goes there, it's real.
So let's move on to somebody that if Cameron wasn't in here right now, he would be super jacked about. And that's his boy, and somebody that a lot of people probably been really sweating so far. Kyle Pitts finally shows up for a game against the Jets. Hey, not a big deal. Just needed to play the Jets and needed no Calvin Ridley. But other than that, he showed up, had himself a game. What do you make of that game? It's kind of hard to take anything actionable away from it because you were playing him, right? If you drafted Kyle Pitts, you were starting Kyle Pitts, and you're gonna continue to start Kyle Pitts. The only question maybe you could have in this situation is, would you be, if you had Kyle Pitts, would you consider? This is easier to say for us because we didn't draft him, but would you consider trading on him right now? Because I still think with his name and his draft capital and being that flashy rookie and then having this game, there's going to be that breakout narrative that's pitched everywhere. I think he would still have a lot of value right now. Would you consider doing something like that? Or are you just happy you saw that he had himself a game and you just want to ride that train and hope that it continues?
I mean, I was interested in Pitts when we were doing our mock drafts, and I did spend 2 or 3 mocks just seeing what my team might look like if I did go that early on Pitts. And it's hard because you don't know what you're going to get out of him. I'm not interested in selling Pitts now because I think it's playing out the way that I would have expected it to when I drafted him overall. Maybe not as much early as I would have liked to have seen a little bit earlier, but I wouldn't have been drafting Pitts expecting instant production either. So like it was week 5. He had his best game so far. So if I'm the guy in my league that was highest on him, or if I had an opportunity to draft him and I did, I guess what I'm saying is like, I would have been expecting it to take some time, and I'm expecting more. So I'm probably sitting on Pitts now. Things can change, obviously. So like if you have a glaring need or things fell into your lap, maybe you did pick up like a Knox or a Schultz or something that you're feeling good about going forward. I mean, there's some other situations that can make that different, but just like on the surface, direct answer, I'm not looking to move him yet. I did think it would take
Okay.
some time, and I'm just really happy that it happened.
I think a lot of people probably in your boat, where you expected it, you kind of waiting for it to happen. What's gonna be what makes this that interesting to me is that the Falcons play the Dolphins next week. If the Falcons struggle to move the ball against the Dolphins and Pitt's production plummets compared to what he just did this past week, then we're right back in that again. And that's when I then think people start to really question if this is going to be someone they can rely on for the year. And that's when his value takes a bit of a dip in this hypothetical situation, obviously. If he goes and does it again, then like we're loving it. But just saying, I mean, for me, I would at least throw some feelers out there, but it's not a situation where I would say I'm just trying to get rid of Kyle Pitts. It's just that what if somebody had, well, I can't say Mark Andrews because he just went off, but if he had, just somebody like that, like I might have sniffed around and see what people were feeling.
Well, one opportunity you might have, like, would you be trying to say you're in a situation where you're 5-0 or 4-1? Are you reaching out to the guy that's got George Kittle, saying like, "Hey, man, like, you're gonna be missing him for a few weeks, or you could have this young gun who could be as good. Ceiling maybe as close, but like a lot more unknown."
That's a good one, because that's really tough. I don't think I would. I think I'd still hold Pitts. It's just because I don't want to be the one to eat that injury, and at the cost of Kyle Pitts, who just had his breakout. I would just feel like I can do better than that right now. Even though I like the idea of buying Kittle low, I think that's given too much. Just given that he hasn't actually put up the numbers yet, and he's hurt. I don't think you should have to give up Kyle Pitts for that.
Buying trouble
Now,
is a big deal.
if you got Kittle in something, if you sent Pitts away and you got Kittle plus a piece that you needed, and then maybe you've got like an available tight end on waivers that somebody didn't pick up yet. That's like if a Dalton Schultz or somebody like that happens to be sitting out there still, and you could grab him, then I would do something like that for sure. We got something in chat here from Barson the Tug. What's up, man?
Welcome
Left
back.
field question of the week. My league, full PPR, gives points for return yards. Should I pick up Jamal Agnew? Is that Agnew or Agnew? I always forget how to say that.
Agnew.
Agnew. Since he's getting targets, plus the Jags D to double up if he gets a return TD. I have a free spot with CH on IR, and hell, it's the London game. Is it the London game? And it's the Dolphins, Tua, which was going to be the next thing I brought up anyway. Tua started throwing a football again. To me, that sounds like he's likely not playing this week. And if that's the case, it's still Brissett. Then I am not at all fearful of playing a defense against the Dolphins, because that offense is just trash right now. It is so bad. But I don't know. I don't. The return yards is interesting because I've never played in a league like that. Have you ever played in a league like that, Dub? I don't really know. How much extra value does that add? I mean, I guess when you have somebody like Agnew, it's tougher. Obviously, if you had somebody like an Antonio Brown back when he returned punts, or OBJ, like you were playing those guys anyway, and that was just probably a cherry on top.
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek,
like
yeah.
Tyreek's first 2 years, he got a lot of production out of return touchdowns.
I would think so. Just full disclosure, I really don't play in return yardage leagues, but trying to picture that world and how that would work. I still don't think I would want to ever play somebody like him. The Jags offense is inconsistent at best anyway. And now you just have like just this random other piece. Like, how productive can that really be long term, consistently? I don't feel like that's gonna be a thing you'd want to get yourself into.
Yeah, I understand
But again, I don't know the return
the
yardage.
thought, and I dig the creativity. It would depend on how many points you get for the yards. I was in one a long time ago when Doug Baldwin was like coming in, and he was getting the return yards. He had, he was a nice punt returner, but he was also involved enough in the passing game early to where, like, when you put the two together, he was a consistent play when he didn't score the touchdowns, but he was like really nice when he did. I dig the creativity. I want to say Agnew had return touchdowns in back-to-back games this year already, so like I
Well,
get
he was the
that.
one that had that. I think it was Prater, wasn't it? He
Yeah,
had that
that
one that
field
was a
goal attempt.
109-yard. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, he had that one too. I'm assuming you're getting less yards or less points per yard on the returns than you would like receiving production. And if that's the case, I'm probably trying to find something else. Um, I think you would want it would be ideal if you were looking more at getting the return production as like the gravy, right? I think you would more want to view it as like I'm okay with running Agnew out there because he's involved enough in the offense that like I have a spot for him because of that. And then if he hits the touchdown on the return, then like that's a home run for me. I don't think I think this one almost feels like it's the other way around, and that scares me.
Right. Agreed. And to get to the defense just quickly, like I said, I don't hate playing a defense against the Dolphins at all, but the Jags in particular, I don't love it. Um, I guess I'd like to know what else you would maybe have available to you to pick up tomorrow, because unless you're in a super deep league, I feel like there might be somebody I'd probably like more. Oops. So, yeah, I mean, while we were talking about that game, yeah. So Tua, just the fact that he's throwing a football, that it just seems like I think they activated him, so or took him off of whatever that list is that they put him on. I can't even remember right now. But anyway, he's in his 21-day window right now to where they basically have to activate him. So I assume that that's going to be the case, and we don't know when. Could it be this week? Maybe. Seems more likely that it could be next week. Probably a little bit of an upgrade for that entire offense, just based on how it's looked since Brissett's been starting. And but something more interesting I wanted to talk about too about that team, Gaskin. This dude had 12 targets. Yeah, I believe it was 12. 10 catches. I I don't think that's repeatable. And nobody was starting Miles Gaskin, I wouldn't imagine. So what can you take from that? I mean, really, what can you take from that? Are you going to put Gaskin back in your lineup now?
I mean, I'd probably be trying to sell high on him. I'd be at least gauging the temperature in my league. Like, what is Miles Gaskin's worth to everybody else? Because I've probably already decided that I'm not going to trust him moving forward, and essentially it's going to be a dead spot on your roster. I think he still carries some more value than guys that you could pick up in free agency at this
Yeah,
point,
probably.
but the value to you as the owner that has him is minimal because like you're probably not going to I'm not going to start him unless I'm really desperate, and I'm not going to feel good about it if I am. So why not get somebody that has more upside or that's more intriguing? So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I did a little bit of research here because I was kind of curious, okay,
Hmm?
about this return yard question. And maybe because you guys have return yards, points for return yards, this guy's already owned, but somebody I'm already big on for the receiving production, Rondale Moore is returning punts for Arizona. So for me, if Rondale Moore is still available, which he is, he's only owned I think in like 40 something percent of leagues right now. Like that's somebody that if he is available, I'm more intrigued with his receiving upside. But like he's also giving you some extra chances on the punt return game too, and that would be. I mean, it comes
I
down to
like that more. Yeah.
availability, but I'm really interested in Rondale Moore otherwise too. So I'd be looking into that if he is available for sure.
Who should I put in as my number one waiver claim? Gaskin, Booker, or Darrell Williams? Um, so the difference between these guys is Gaskin is he doesn't now get to be on the field more because of an injury. Whereas with Devontae Booker, obviously it's completely his value is completely tied to Saquon and how long Saquon's going to be out for, which we don't know. We don't know that. It could be just one game. It could be multiple. Could be 3, 4. Don't know. Booker's going to get a lot of volume. don't love what made like as far as the efficiency goes. I don't love it as much as a Darrell Williams, who I think obviously the I don't even need to go through like the difference in the offense between the Chiefs and the Giants and the quarterback play specifically. I will say about Darrell Williams, I think that he will be the 1A now with CEH out. But I do think that McKinnon's going to be on the field too. I think McKinnon's going to get a little bit of work, and he'll probably be involved in the pass game more than anything. But I think he'll be out there too. So I don't think Darrell Williams is going to be all of a sudden workhorse in that offense. But I am so out on Gaskin as well, just because we've seen weeks and weeks of this. Yeah, he had this crazy game. To me, that seems like an outlier, and that also seems like a Brissett situation. And if and when Tua comes back, I don't think that happens. For me personally, I don't want anything to do with the Miami backfield. It would be between Booker and Darrell Williams, knowing that both of these are short-term situations. If you need a running back right now that you need to start, like right now, it should be one of those two. And I probably lean Darrell Williams just because I want to be tied to the better offense and hope for the best. Plus, CH is actually put on IR, so we know he's out for at least 3 games. We don't know what's going on with Saquon.
Yeah, and you can't spend time like investing in the unknown. So like the Chiefs are kicking the tires on other running backs, but we don't know that that's going to happen. So you have to evaluate it as is. If it's a 1-week scenario, a little bit different. I did pull up the matchups here, and the Giants play the Rams. So like I really wouldn't want to put Booker out there in that situation, even though I like Booker longer term. And the Dolphins we talked about just now have Jacksonville, which is probably the more intriguing matchup for a 1-week situation. And you'd have Darrell Williams in Washington.
Not scared at all about that defense right now.
No. So, yeah, I mean, I think Darrell Williams probably has the best opportunity, and then I would probably go Gaskin second for a 1-week world over Booker, just because that Rams matchup isn't great either. But longer term, yeah, I agree with Josh.
Darrell Williams.
Yeah.
That's what I would go with.
And Booker being intriguing longer term.
And because we mentioned Darrell Williams, I don't know if you were in here in chat at the moment, but we mentioned Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack has been rumored. The Chiefs, I think someone from the Chiefs came out and said that they did check into Marlon Mack. That was as far as the information went, as far as what we know. So just throwing that out there too, that maybe you see a Marlon Mack to Kansas City, and if you do, then after he probably doesn't play the first week, but that coming up week, I imagine he would dress, and that is an immediate threat to anything you think you might be getting with Darrell Williams, and even CEH when he returns.
Yeah, if that happens, Marla Mac's gonna be the guy. We don't know it's gonna happen yet, but like that's a risk you're taking with that situation. You're probably risking the best opportunity this week for like the most concerning. I don't know the biggest chance of not have. Yeah.
You're probably safe this week regardless. It's just that probably doesn't happen just because trade talks happen all the time and hypotheticals happen all the time in the NFL, and it rarely actually happens the way that like the fantasy community wants it to, as far as who goes where.
It's true. There's a lot more rumors than there are transactions.
Yeah, what's actually going to happen is Marlon Mack's going to go to like the Jags, some dumb shit like that, and no one's going to care except for the James Robinson owners who are just going to be pissed. That's how that actually usually works out.
It's true.
So another we were talking about Tua and him coming back at some point soon. Jimmy Garoppolo, he also may be playing this coming up week. So we might have been a one and done for Trey Lance. We don't actually know that for sure. Obviously depends on how Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll just have to pay attention to his practice this week and see if he's practicing at all.
Well, bad news for that is he's got an extra week. They're on bye this week.
Oh, that's true. They get the extra week. So that means more than likely it's going to be Garoppolo when they do come back. What would that be then, week 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer, but like I didn't see what I wanted to out of the Niners offense with Trey Lance either. It ended up being like Trey Lance was their best runner and the rest of it stayed the same, or maybe even got a little more janky. It's just weird.
Trey Lance got one freaking carry. Or sorry, I say Trey Lance, I meant Trey Sermon.
Yeah, Trey Sermon. Yeah. Yeah, Elijah
Yoke.
Mitchell was very mediocre again, so that was cool.
Yeah. Thanks, bro.
Appreciate it. What are
Well
they
done,
doing?
Kyle. Well done.
What are they doing? What
I
are
don't
these
know.
teams doing?
I don't like their coach.
You got the Niners out here. They got all these guys, and they don't know what they want to do with them, right? It seems so simple on paper. You go draft a kid, so you thought something of him at one point. Let him run the friggin' ball. Elijah Mitchell out here apparently is a burner. Give him the spot touches. Maybe try to get him in open space, couple screens or swing passes. I don't care, all right? But you're doing it backwards, and I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of the Ravens. Tyson Williams got some carries again, and my head's gonna fucking explode. I can't stand it, man. I'm not going to drop too many of those. Sorry for the language, but like it's frustrating. And the Ravens are out here running 14 running backs, and nobody knows what's going to happen, and it works, and I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, what do you do about that running back situation?
Nothing. I'm out. Tyson Williams was involved again, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, nope.
Sorta.
Freeman kind of looked like the best guy out there. I don't know what's going on.
I think
Latavius
Tyson
Murray was the starter last week.
I know. He's such a.
Dude.
He's not good. He's not that good. He's not that good anymore. I think he used to be better than he is right now. Dropping passes out there, easy ones with nobody around him. Then looking around like it's somebody else's fault. That guy drives me nuts. Tyson Williams should be getting the rock at all times in that backfield, and it's not happening. It's so frustrating. I agree. I'm totally out on that backfield too. Can't. I don't want anybody because how you gonna ever? Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? How you gonna know? And you can't trust anything they say.
It's like this good old boys club thing where it's like, well, we brought in a bunch of veterans and now we don't want to cuck them, so we're gonna just like spread the ball around and everyone's just gonna get like 3 carries a game and we'll be good with that.
I think it was Schefter that tweeted something about the people inquiring about running backs from the Ravens, but there was not a specific name that was mentioned as far as like what players they might be looking into or checking for. I don't even know who that could be. But could Tyson Williams go somewhere? Because
if I was on the outside looking in, like probably most interested in Freeman, and they had him in the red zone a couple times too. Like I wonder if maybe they're advertising him. We've talked about that a little bit.
That's like what the Colts have been doing with Marla Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
But like if he goes somewhere else, I'm not interested. He had a chat with New York last year, and I wasn't impressed.
Maybe that's Kansas City, because they've already confirmed looking into Marlon Mack. So maybe Kansas City is looking at somebody from the Ravens as well.
That would be like the only place that Devontae Freeman could go that I might be interested in, right? Because he can catch. He's a veteran. Like he does the little things right. He can block. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd have a little bit of interest, but like.
I would be, but it would just feel like all that would do is make all of them irrelevant for fantasy.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be Freeman emerging as the guy while Clyde is out. It wouldn't be Darrell Williams. It would just be a mess. McKinnon would get involved too, and nobody would be relevant if a move like that happens. Just because I don't think Freeman right now may not be as capable as someone like a Marla Mac could be, where that guy could actually take over. I don't know if Freeman could even do that at this point.
Betting against it.
So
put that in your DraftKings.
This next one's gonna hurt me. Okay, it hurts me to talk about, but I think
do you
it's
want me
the
to
truth.
say it for you?
What's that?
Zach Ertz is becoming there is a thing.
Oh no!
Oh.
No, I've already moved past that. I understand that's a thing. I cut Dallas Goedert. We are no more. Okay. I have moved on.
Okay.
Rest in peace to his fantasy career.
The thread that was left is now gone.
It's gone. Yeah, because by the time Ertz leaves, Goddard is also going to be at retirement age, so it's over. I think there is a new number 1 wide receiver over there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. I don't think it's Keenan Allen. I think Mike Williams has supplanted Keenan Allen. I think he's the new number 1. The stats do say that, but I'm not. That's not what I'm pushing talking about just the way they're using him and how he looks on the field. Keenan Allen is not the first read most of the time. It's Mike Williams. And any time that Mike Williams is on the outside, Herbert loves just giving him an opportunity to make a play. He's had that one bad game 2 weeks ago. He rebounded this week. Obviously had a massive game. But how many touchdowns does he have at this point? 4 or 5? Getting a ton of targets, but then actually looking the part on the field too. I tried trading Keenan Allen for Mike Williams last week with the perception, and this is just my opinion, that Keenan Allen still carries that name. And I actually went a 2-for-1, offered Keenan Allen for Mike Williams and a piece. And I mean, you know who this would be in our league, but the immediate response was like, "Oh man, I really like that offer." And there was reasons why it didn't happen, different reasons why it didn't happen. But now, like this week, another week removed, there's no chance that a trade like that could happen at this point, and I think for good reason. I'm just saying, if I was redrafting today, I'd be taking Mike Williams before I'd be taking Keenan Allen. And that hurts me because he was one of my keepers.
Straight up then?
No.
No?
No, because then that buries Keenan Allen's name. And also on top of that, I don't think it would happen. But if I knew for sure it would happen, I would rather have Mike Williams rest of the season than Keenan Allen. Yeah.
Mike Williams is a guy that they've talked about in high regard athletically since he came into the league. He was like Sammy Watkins 2.0, right? Like, I want to say, didn't they both came out of Clemson? They were both big freaks, and he showed some flashes, and he was banged up, and like it seemed like anytime he started getting a little bit of momentum, something would happen. And his quarterback play wasn't the greatest either. And then now you have Herbert, and all of a sudden, Herbert 5 weeks into year 2, Mike Williams is the thing. And that's why we talk about some guys that might not be on the radar, or circumstances that could change, like, because that's all it took. Like, I think Mike Williams got better as a receiver over those, few years too. But like, I think the biggest change, the direct difference that you can point to is Herbert. And now all of a sudden Mike Williams is a wide receiver 1 that was drafted. I looked at Mike Williams a few days ago. He was drafted like 113th overall in our draft.
Yeah.
And now you can't get him for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, it was. I mean, actually, the trade was Keenan Allen for Mike Williams and Damien Williams, and that was before the games this past week. And for different reasons, it didn't happen. But the trade itself, straight up, he liked a lot. Now, imagine offering that again today.
Yeah,
it wouldn't happen. But that's where I was at with it. I have Keenan Allen. He's a keeper of mine, and I really felt strongly. I was looking at last week when Mike Williams had his down game. I was looking at that as a buy low that just wasn't there at the time, and I just couldn't make it happen. But that's all just to say that I really do think that's where those two wide receivers are at this point. Another thing that changed too is Lombardi, is Joe Lombardi, pretty sure. He's a new offensive coordinator for the Chargers, and he was with the Saints for a while before he got this job with the Chargers.
He was with Detroit.
Was he with Detroit too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, he had, in the offseason, he had talked about Mike Williams, you playing in the Mike, why am I spacing on his name? The Saints. Wide receiver.
Thomas?
Mike Thomas. He was talking about putting Mike Williams in the Michael Thomas role, which didn't really make a lot of sense because just when you think about like the players and their play styles, there's very different styles. But he mentioned Mike Williams specifically about the Michael Thomas role in the offense. And then, like you talk about Herbert being the only difference, I think Herbert's obviously a huge part of that change. But also the offensive coordinator and the way the way they're playing football right now, like the play calls and the way they have their plays designed. Mike Williams is maybe their key component in the passing game. Obviously, have Eckler; it's a big part of it too. And then Keenan Allen is still a really good player, and he's still heavily involved and gets targeted a lot too, so he's fine. But it's just not what you thought you were getting when you were coming into the year.
It's true. Mike Williams came into the league. They were like, "You're big and fast. We're gonna just send you down the sideline," and that was like his role for 2 years.
That's all he used to do. Yeah, and they don't do that. They do that, but they don't do just that with him anymore. It's far from it. He's a legitimate wide receiver running all the routes, all the routes available. He runs. That's a bummer. It's a
I mean,
bummer
it's
for
good.
me.
Big for Mike Williams though.
It is. Maybe some of these other things we can just go through quick. Like Juju's out for the year. I'm sure people probably know that at this point. Juju's out for the year. So what does that mean for that team? It just means that, I mean, you were already playing Deontay Johnson. You were already playing Najee Harris. Maybe Claypool was a fringe flex or something like that. I think you're probably playing Claypool. It is a little bit of a bump up for him. I do think that Roethlisberger will probably give a few extra looks to Claypool's way. Anthony Miller did sign with the practice squad with the Steelers. He was with Houston and was cut pretty quickly. It seemed like there was a correlation between him getting cut and Danny Amendola being activated on that roster. But I mean, Anthony Miller couldn't even make the Houston roster for very long, so I don't really feel like he's going to be able to do much for the Steelers. But that could surprise us. Anthony Miller is a slot player, and that's what Juju was doing. So it makes sense why they brought him in. But to me, it just gives you a little bit more confidence in Claypool, Deontay, and Harris, those guys you were already playing. Anything? Agree with everything there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's better receiver options out there, but I think I'm a little more interested in Anthony Miller than you. But also, like Juju
Yeah.
wasn't really producing out of that role either, so like there's a lot not to like about it.
Okay. I think that covers just about everything. Maybe you wanted to touch on Cephas with the Lions being hurt and out. Was that for the year? Or was
Yeah,
that
so
just
they're
a
saying that
short-term
they
IR?
called it a shoulder injury, and then I want to say that they said it was like a broken collarbone, and that has the potential to keep him out for the rest of the year. So,
Yeah.
Detroit was thin at wide receiver, and Cephas seemed to be the guy that was emerging as like the most consistent threat out of their receiving core. He was consistent is the why I use that term because like he wasn't just showing out at any time, but he was making some tough catches, and I actually felt like he was kind of coming into his own, and now he might be out for the year. So the targets are now going to Khalif Raymond. Tyrell Williams should be back before too long, so I don't know how all that's going to play out, but Khalif Raymond missed some opportunities too. I'm not really interested in any of those guys right now, but kind of bummed for Cephas because I feel like he was kind of finding a role there, and I thought he was filling it well.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about getting to these waivers? Their waivers.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Do we knock out this Raiders thing real quick?
Oh, okay. We can. Well, I tell you what. How can we do this? Cameron, welcome. Just joined us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Would you guys care? Okay, I need a quick pee break. All right, and maybe I need another beer. You guys want to go off on this Raiders thing, and I'll jump in here and join you when I get back.
Run it.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck with your Raiders talk and your emails.
Yeah. So what happened was, John Gruden, they sounded like they did a little internal investigation. They went through his emails and they found a bunch of content that they weren't a fan of, and they said they were done with John Gruden. He resigned, I believe. They gave him the opportunity to do that, but he was done either way. My question, so part of it was like, I don't know. When I heard it, my first reaction was like, kind of surprising, but he's also like kind of an old school, outdated kind of a guy, and the things that they were citing in the emails were like, okay, like maybe this dude just needed an update, right? Like he hasn't evolved with the times, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, there's reason to talk about that for football purposes because there are some pieces on that offense that are interesting. So Josh Jacobs is back, and he's been filling his role as expected the last couple weeks. Kenyon Drake, there was some fill-in pieces while he was gone, but Henry Ruggs, Darren Waller, Derek Carr's been interesting for fantasy purposes, even though he had a bad week this week. But there's a handful of guys there that you're looking at that you're like, okay, well, these guys, Hunter Renfrow has been one that we've mentioned recently that's been interesting in the slot. You're looking at this team and you're wondering, like, how is this going to affect the guys on my roster? I guess I just wanted to touch on it enough to say that I'm concerned because I think Derek Carr coming into his own, I think you could credit some of that to John Gruden. I think that is a little bit concerning. Mostly, I think it's concerning with how it might affect Derek Carr. I still think the weapons are going to be about the same. I still think Josh Jacobs is going to be their runner. I still think that Darren Waller is going to be Derek Carr's favorite target. So I mean, like, I don't know that the needle moves too much for the weapons. For me, I think it'd be more about like the mental aspect for Derek Carr and how that might affect the whole thing indirectly. So, what do you think, Cam? You think these guys are gonna have some issues? You think the team goes into disarray? You think things kind of stay the same? I mean, what are we looking at here?
That's what I was gonna say. I think there's not gonna be too much change. I think there's that relationship between Carr and Gruden, but overall, I mean, Carr's gonna be Carr. They're gonna do the same thing. It's not like they were absolutely killing it. They weren't terrible. I don't see it getting worse. I don't think it affects it too much. I think it's funny.
I think if it is going to affect people, it's going to be Ruggs and Renfro. I think Carr this year has been better than he has ever been at distributing the ball, which has been benefiting those guys. I don't think there's anything that's really going to affect like Carr's chemistry with Waller. I think Waller still gets fed and things stay about the same for him and Jacobs. I think I'm more concerned with a Renfro and a Ruggs. So like if you're planning on relying on them, I might be looking for some insurance because if it goes upside down and there's just, like I don't even know. Do we know who's taking over that role? I'm guessing there's going to be like an interim coordinator.
I believe it was the assistant.
Okay.
I can pull up the name real quick, but yeah, it was in-house. It was the assistant.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it gives us the best chance of things staying the same. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to move the needle too much on any of it, but I'm a little concerned about like Renfro and Ruggs just in case like things get weird. But overall, I think the guys that you invested in, you're going to be using the same. Weird though.
Yeah.
Weird stuff over there.
Dude, I mean, that thing just Ron Burgundy, that escalated quickly.
Well, like reading between the lines with the topics that were mentioned, it's like we don't want women officials and we don't want gays, and like it was just.
It's like, listen, he offended gay people, he offended people of color, he offended women. So, like I said in our group chat earlier, if you're hanging out with John Gruden, you better be a straight white male and probably like a rich one,
dude.
Considering that he exchanges these emails with team owners and shit.
He went full kamikaze on it. Like he couldn't have picked worse topics to touch on either. Like it's just like, did this guy just like?
He went in.
Yeah, was he just sending out an email every time something new happened, and he like was just like venting his displeasure about all of it? Like I don't know. It was weird. Listen, man, I just want to tell you, these female referees, man, hate them. Okay, that's all I got. It's weird. Fantasy purposes stays about the same. Till we know more.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Watch short term. Watch the Raiders play better. When these coaches lose their jobs, it seems like a lot of the times the teams come out, they're all fired up. They play a really good game. Everybody's like, "Oh man, coach was the problem," and then the next week get washed. Yeah. Totally get washed. That's what's gonna happen.
Dallas, I'll tell you what happened. What happened is they're paying John Gruden as like top 5 coach in the NFL, and they haven't got there yet.
What started the investigation? That investigation was actually still part of this entire. Do you remember that formerly Washington, other name, now Washington, the football team? You remember that investigation that happened? And was it last year, 2 years ago? There was a whole thing going on with that organization and everything that was going on behind the scenes. Because of that, a bunch of emails were looked into, 650,000 emails. And that's not a made-up number. That's a real number. And they just happened to find this. They just stumbled across these emails with John Gruden and the previous Washington owner. And then somebody leaked them, and that's all it took. Imagine the thing is, those are probably not the only bad emails, but it doesn't matter anymore. He's done. So Devontae Booker or Darrell Williams. Yeah, we were just about to start talking about them with some guys we were looking at for waivers. I think that assuming you don't have, probably goes without saying, but we're just assuming you don't have Saquon and you don't have Clyde, because if you did, then you would take one of those guys, whoever the backup is. But I think it sounded like you did too, Dub, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I like Darrell Williams a little bit more than Devontae Booker, just because of the offense that he's tied to compared to Booker's, and also even this particular week, the Giants are playing the Rams. That's a tough matchup. Clyde was put on IR, so he's guaranteed to be out for at least 3 weeks, if not longer. And with Saquon, he could be back next week for all we know. So I lean Darrell Williams between those two.
Yeah, same. I mean, in the offseason, they were using Devontae Booker a lot in the preseason to get a feel for him, and I thought he looked pretty good. That hasn't really been the case in the regular season with his opportunities, so that's also a little bit of a knock, but we'll wait. We'll see. I mean, we did touch on it a little bit earlier. You might have missed it, but like Daryl Williams has a little extra risk too. I mean, he's the safer pick this week for sure. And then we were talking about how the Chiefs are kicking the tires on other running backs, and if like that ends up being a thing, you're not counting on it. But if that ends up being a thing, like Daryl Williams is going to be is a non-factor depending on who they pick up. So yeah, there's a little bit of risk there. I mean, don't take that on the surface as like for sure you're good to go with Darrell Williams, but he's the safer pick this week with the better matchup, and that's who we like. That could change tomorrow.
Yeah, if you go Booker's way, you're essentially just banking on, or you're essentially just taking what is volume. You're going to be getting a lot of volume from Devontae Booker. He will be the guy out there running the ball, catching the ball, all that stuff. Darrell Williams will probably share some work to some extent with Jerick McKinnon. We just don't know how much. Are the Chiefs really interested in Marla Mac? Yeah, well, they said the Chiefs did confirm, someone from the Chiefs confirmed, I don't have the name in front of me, that they I think it was in quotations, looked into Marlon Mack, and that was as far as that went. So don't really know actually what that means, but they poked around.
Yeah,
That's all we know.
I think if they're asking, and with Clyde too, like they have to want him. I think it's going to come down more to asking price. Like, what are the Colts really realistically looking at? Like what would the Chiefs be willing to give up to get him? I don't know.
And I don't think you have to give up a lot. I really don't.
I mean, if you're the Colts, would you take like a Robinson or Pringle? Because they just signed Josh Gordon, so like I'm assuming that the Chiefs would be willing to move one of those guys.
Maybe.
Because the Colts could use some receivers too. I mean, they're getting Hilton back soon, it sounds like, so maybe they're good there. But
I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate it. I think the Chiefs win that trade. Somebody's got to win it.
True.
Yeah, that could work for both teams, maybe.
Dallas, was that you that benched Dawson Knox this week? Somebody commented, and I'm pretty sure it was you, giving us a little bit of shit.
What?
I appreciate that. Said, dude, you guys told me to start Hawkinson this week, and Dawson Knox went off.
Oh my god, dude, what is going on with Hawkinson?
Hawkinson's tough. Like I said, I think it's just like his stage in his progression. Like he's demanding more attention, and I think he's just learning how to manage it.
Or is it? Yeah, I'm sure that probably it does have something to do with it. Obviously, more attention is going to be more difficult for production. But do you think his injury is really something that's bothering him too? I'm asking because, like, for future, like we're going to get asked Hawkinson questions. Like on Sunday, we're going to get asked about Hawkinson, and it's going to be tough to recommend him over some of these guys at this point.
It's true. I mean, in our defense, Knox did that on 3 catches, all right? He went for 114 and a touchdown on 3 catches.
Knox had 3 damn catches, and one of them just happened to be a bomb.
I accept it.
But it's always an option. It's always something that can happen with Josh Allen.
It's true. Knox is a nice option. I don't know, man. You're still in a position where I expect Hawkinson to have the better full season, right? It's just like week to week. I don't know. I mean, Knox is starting to look like a really nice option, though.
Really is. Congrats on having Knox. Sorry about that recommendation last week, but I tell you, I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah, love Dawson Knox. Get him in your lineups.
Top 3 tight end.
Dude.
Darren Waller, Dawson Knox. That's a close call. No,
So-
not really.
So we've got we it's that week to week stuff, man. I'll be honest,
Mhm.
I feel good enough about Dawson Knox that I put a little first touchdown score bet in there during the game. They looked his way on their first drive on offense, but it was just like more of a throwaway kind of a pass attempt or well, I don't even know if you'd call it a target, but like they do
I
keep
saw
an
it.
eye on him.
I saw it. He seems like he's going to be a real thing. Him and Dalton Schultz, both.
Listen, if that touchdown would have been on their first drive, it would have got me $280. If you need help gambling, if you need help with gambling addiction, I can provide a phone number. I personally partake.
Yeah, let me Google it real quick.
Yeah, but yeah. No, I like Dawson Knox a lot.
What's another
Hockenson
good tight end?
unfortunately is in a situation where he's the only guy down. He's the only guy down the field that's a threat right now. I mean, that's really what we're looking at, and it's a real bummer.
Sorry, I jumped in late, and I know you guys talked about my boy Pitts. What happened?
We said, sell high, sell high. No, I didn't say that. I kind of mentioned it. I did throw it out there.
It's a good possibility. But it's
Yeah.
just funny because listening to you talk about Hockenson now, that was the big talk during the draft was Hockenson or Pitts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts wins week 5.
Yeah, I feel that.
I mean, we just real quick, like what I kind of mentioned was that it was the Jets and Ridley was out,
Mm-hmm.
but you would hope that given that Kyle Pitts would perform, and he did. I mean, if you have no Calvin Ridley and you're playing the Jets and you still end up with a pretty pedestrian day, then you would really feel worried. So he should have performed, and he did. So that's a good thing.
Nice
And
work,
then
It
we
Sean.
is.
just kind of hope that he can carry.
Well,
Touchdown in London.
I dig the use of pedestrian. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, so we've got these waiver guys we're looking at. We did just kind of touch on the two big ones. So Devontae Booker and Darrell Williams are probably the two big headliners this week. We kind of covered it indirectly, but
Yeah.
both very interesting for different reasons. I guess just to kind of make it as clear as it can be, Darrell Williams, safest pick this week for the running back options out there. But the Chiefs are looking at other players, so that could change overnight. But Darrell Williams, I thought he looked good with the opportunities he had, so I'm pretty interested in that. I mean, it looks like he's already going to be an upgrade at running over Clyde.
Well, Daryl was already getting work before this too.
Yeah.
Before that injury, so
And he's got to work with them on and off over the last few years too. I think it's somebody that they
Yep.
don't mind using. It's more like maybe they're worried about long term, or they do like having some other options to go to. I
think they just know he's not special. He's gonna get what's there, but he can't really create much on his own. I think that's really what it is.
True. Devontae Booker's available. He's going to be the guy that, or should be available in your league. He's a guy that, man, it seems like he's really like a momentum kind of a guy, not just game to game, but week to week throughout the season. Because he had a killer stretch down the end of last season, and he came in hot this preseason. So like I still think there's something there. It's just something that not seeing yet this regular season. Maybe I'm a little less interested in investing in him. Darrell Williams is probably our top guy, but I still think there's a lot of volume there and a lot of potential with the Devontae Booker situation. Big bummer for Barkley. I mean, we were just talking about how he kind of got going again, and he's been looking better week in week, and like now this.
Yeah, it sucks. It really does. That was the biggest thing. I wasn't even thinking about like, oh man, I can't wait to put my waiver claim in on Devontae Booker. Let's get it. It was more like, man, that sucks for Saquon because he was just starting to look really good. He was starting to look really good again. And they, according to the Twitter doctors online, this was not some sort of injury that is stemmed from any previous injuries or the fact that he may or may not be, quote, injury prone. It was just a freak accident. So just really bad luck for Saquon.
There's
And
another
hopefully he's
guy,
gonna be straight.
another guy in that team that's had some opportunities due to injury, Kadarius Tony. That's somebody
Yeah.
that you had on your radar for a couple weeks, right?
I did. Toot my own horn for a second. Picked him up for a whole $1 Sunday morning, and I'm glad I did that. I hope that you guys watched his game last weekend, and the last 2 games, the week before and then this past game, because that guy is something else on the field. He, I don't. Some of the things he does doesn't make sense. Like he's so fast, quick with his feet, and the way he moves his body. It's very weird and different, and I'm not used to seeing guys look the way he looks. I don't know. He didn't look like that player in college. So one of the maybe the biggest knock on him was that he just needed to get better with his route running. It looks like he might have got better with his route running, and he just seems like someone that is going to be able to get open. So I don't want to say easily, but looks like a guy who can get open a lot. Open to the point where even if it's freaking Glennon back there as the quarterback, that he still might be able to produce, which he did when Glennon was put into the game. I can say that. I mean, I think if you need a wide receiver, I think you should be looking to get Kadarius Toney over a Darrell Williams. But if you're a running back needy team, then it's the other way around. So I don't feel like it's definitive. It just depends on your roster. But those would be the top 2 guys for me. I mean, I could go on about that Giants situation. I don't love Daniel Jones himself, even when he comes back, but I think he's fine enough to be able to let the wide receivers produce. Evan Ingram's been back and hasn't really done much. I don't think he's really much of a factor. Galladay is now hurt. We don't know what the severity is of his injury. Slayton and Shepard have both been out, and that allowed Kadarius Toney to be on the field and give this opportunity, and then he's just sort of showcased himself. So I don't know what that means when Shepard and Slayton come back. How is that rotation going to look? Who's going to get the playing time? I do feel like Toney has looked such a way on the field that he has to be one of the people that the Giants, I feel like the Giants are going to look at him and be like, we have to make sure that we keep getting him the ball. I think he's got a spot now and it's solidified. I'd be very surprised if in a hypothetical Slayton and Shepard come back and then Toney is not getting much many snaps. I would be taken back by that. I'd be very surprised by that. At this point, I assume that he's going to be on the field most of the time.
If I had to guess, I'd say that Slayton takes the step back. And I think that a guy that creates separation works best with Daniel Jones. I mean, one of the things that was part of my Galladay rant was that I think Galladay suffers because Daniel Jones doesn't trust Galladay in the tight situations, which is where Galladay makes his living. So it's a bad fit. I've said that a couple times. But I think if you were to spin off of that, I still feel that way. And when you have a guy like Toney out there getting separation, and that's where Daniel Jones is more comfortable placing the ball, is someone that makes their living in separation as opposed to like strong hands and contested catching. That's going to be somebody that draws attention from Daniel Jones on a regular basis when he's on the field. So I don't think Shepard's going away. If I had to guess, I'd say it'd be Slayton. So I would kind of plan accordingly for that. They both have hamstring injuries, which can linger. So something tells me the nicest way to make this play out is maybe the trainers or the coaching staff are like, hey, Darius, that hamstring's still bugging you, yeah? He's like, I've been good for 2 weeks.
No need to rush it.
Yeah. No, you go take a nice bath. We'll talk again next week. All right, good talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've seen Slayton, and honestly, I don't mind Slayton. I think Slayton with the right team would probably be really productive. He's a product of his statistics are a product of the team he plays for. And honestly, you could probably say that about all those guys. Like Evan Ingram is, I don't know, if he can catch the ball and stay healthy, like Evan Ingram has that prototypical tight end that you would want as a pass catcher. Shepard has popped at different times. Shepard has done it. Or sorry, not Shepard. Slayton has done it too. And obviously we know Galladay's great. Like they've got great options there. They really do. But in my opinion, Kadarius Toney looks different from all of them. From all of them, he looks different. he got hurt in that last game. It doesn't seem like it's something that's going to linger, be an issue. I think it was an ankle, and I think they've already sort of pushed that aside and said no, it's not a problem. But he's not the biggest guy, and he plays really hard. So I do have a little bit of concern about that. This is like a Deontay Johnson situation where Deontay's a small guy but plays hard and gets hurt a lot. So I hope that's not the case. But yeah, Tony might be legit. So for me, it's him and Darrell Williams as the top two.
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye on Kadarius Tony. A couple other receivers that I had wrote down. Devontae Parker is still only owned in 59% of leagues. I say that because like the dude's been pretty good, and he's been consistent this year even without the monster production. But if you go and you take a look at the Dolphins' upcoming schedule from a receiving standpoint, like it is juicy. I mean, I'm talking like 4 of the next 6 matchups you're looking at, and you're loving it. So I'm really interested in Devontae Parker. He's available in 41% of leagues, which is enough that I think it's worth mentioning with the upside considered. And then T.Y. Hilton, Frank Reich came out and said that he's close. I mean, like probably not, but they're saying he could be ready to go, in this coming game. I doubt that, and I think he would be on a snap count to an extent if he were to come back this early. But he's only owned in 21% of leagues. Carson Wentz seemed to have a little more time during the game that I watched last night. He wasn't running for his life, and I still think he is an upgrade at that position. So like T.Y. Hilton coming back would hurt Pascal, who I think is already kind of faded the last 2-3 weeks anyway. But definitely somebody I'd be really interested in. I think Hilton has a lot to offer with Wentz at quarterback. So 21%. I mean, I just think it should at least be higher.
I can agree with that. I do agree with that.
I still like Michael Pittman with Hilton on the field. I guess I want to clarify that too. It's Pascal that's going to take the step back or the additional step back. I think Michael Pittman's going to be just fine.
I agree with all that. And to your point, just quickly about the Dolphins and the nice matchups they've got. 3 of the next 4 weeks. So they do have the Bills. That's tough, obviously. But 3 of the next 4 games, Jaguars, Falcons, and Texans. So that does sound pretty nice. And Tua might be back sooner rather than later. So
killer matchup.
I like it. In the chat, Devonta Smith or Jacoby Myers long term, that would be Devonta Smith.
Firm. We were just talking a little bit off stream too about the situation in New England. I think that gets worse for Jacoby Myers. Hunter Henry looked like he had a little game. Nikhil Harry hasn't done much, but he's coming back. So I kind of think there's still a couple weeks yet to see if Nikhil Harry demands a little more. I think Jacoby Myers has been getting a lot of targets. We're aware of that. That's well documented. But I think Devonta Smith's arrow's going up, and Jacoby Myers is at least plateauing at this point.
You also have got some like a Kendrick Bourne, who he's made his way around too. He's been on different teams, but Kendrick Bourne. Wait, is that? Am I thinking that right? I think I'm thinking of the right player.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's made a thing now of himself a little bit with that team too, and I really am not excited about any Patriot. It's tough to get excited about any of them. I mean, running back position is so thin, and obviously a Damien Harris, and like Dub mentioned, we're gonna have to pay attention to Hunter Henry because Jonnu Smith was primarily a blocker in this last game, and Hunter Henry was running all the routes. The difficult thing about those tight ends when we were doing drafts and going into the season was the fact that both of them are there. And so we couldn't really feel good about either. But if what happened this past week, if that's a start of a trend, then Hunter Henry's going to become a lot more appealing. And that's just another reason why Jacoby Myers might lose a little bit of volume. But outside of all of that, Devonta Smith is a different type of player than Jacoby Myers is. He's a much better wide receiver. And I'm almost always going to lean with the much better player when there's that big of a gap, and I believe there is between them. Start Claypool or Devonta Smith. Let me pull up who they're playing because I can never remember these games off the top of my head. So bad at that.
Philly's at home against Tampa on Thursday.
Okay.
And then we've got Pittsburgh at home against Seattle on the Sunday night game.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah. I'm
Those are
probably
both
going
good matchups.
Claypool without Juju too.
Yeah, that's fair. Man, Smith's been on a couple little bit of a heater, hasn't he?
I know. I like Smith. I do like Smith. I like them both, and I think it's pretty close.
It is, yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you what do you do though? I mean, Tampa Bay's
I
DBs
both
are bad, right? But that defense still has a lot of.
Yeah, you
they
could
have a
worry
lot.
about a Jalen Hurts. You could worry about a Jalen Hurts efficiency and production getting pressured a lot, which I imagine he will. Hurts is pretty #sketch as a thrower. So, I mean, not that Big Ben's been any better really, but yeah, I probably would. They're both great matchups, and I probably would go Claypool. If you have a flex in that league and one of those guys can be your flex, though, I would be curious who you were considering starting ahead of one of those guys, because those would both be good starts this week. There's one more running back I want to mention. I don't know if you've got any more for waivers, but I don't outside of this one guy. And this is far from you must add territory. It's just deep league, throwing him out there. Khalil Herbert,
Oh yeah.
running back for the Bears. He's 8% owned in ESPN leagues. And, Damien Williams was the hot commodity this past week. When Montgomery went down, everybody was all about Damien Williams, and it's totally fine and fair and justifiable. But we did speculate that there was potential that Khalil Herbert could get some work. I can't say I would have seen a complete 50-50 split, but I'm also not surprised by it at the same time. Herbert looked good in preseason, and Herbert looked like the same player in this past game to me as he did in preseason. He's a smaller running back, but he's a strong, powerful running back. I don't know if he's much of a pass catcher or not. I know the Bears didn't use him that way. His upside is definitely capped, and it's also the Bears' offense. There's not a lot of points to go around, so this is not like an exciting ad or anything. But if you're super desperate at running back, and especially if you're in a 12-team or deeper league, I think you could do worse than Khalil Herbert. He did have 18 carries this past week, 75 yards. Looked pretty good. Yeah, it's an offense that doesn't score a lot, so you take that for what it is. But I wanted to mention him again.
Well, you look at the. Real quick, we just got another sub. Jake, thanks for the sub. Appreciate that, buddy.
Thanks, Jake.
Chicago won, and they looked good. They ran the ball. What was it, like 28 times total? I think if you counted some Fields carries, because Damien Williams had 20, or he had 16 and 2 catches. It was like 16 carries for Williams, 18 carries for Herbert. And so it's kind of interesting to me because it's like, if he is just a runner, if that's what we're going to commit to, that or if that's what we're expecting, I guess is how I'll phrase it, then and they're finding success through the running game like that. I mean, kind of interesting, if that's where they want to make their living right now. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity.
I think if they can, they will run the ball. It seems like they would love to take as much off of Justin Fields as they can. I don't know. Nagy, I don't know about you, bro. I'm starting to wonder about you. I always was wondering, but now I'm really starting to wonder. Because that playbook doesn't seem like the right playbook for Justin Fields and what he's good at. But, hey, what do I know? Not a coach. Certainly not an NFL coach. In chat again, I have Metcalf, Toney, Claypool, and Smith. I can start 3. Okay. So I was thinking that Metcalf and Toney were must starts. So with Kadarius Tony, I can tell you I really like what Kadarius Tony looks like. I really like the way he looks. But I think you have a couple interesting things you got to pay attention to with that Giants, and I know where Dub's probably going to say, but we don't know who's going to be the quarterback because Daniel Jones is in concussion protocol. If Daniel Jones, as much as I'm not the biggest fan, we're talking about Glennon, who we don't want any part of if we can avoid it. So if Daniel Jones doesn't clear concussion protocol this week, I'm sitting Toney. If he does clear concussion protocol, you still have all these other wide receivers for the Giants that may or may not play. All of them. Galladay, Slayton, Shepard, We don't know anything about any of them and their status. So you have to pay attention to all of that before you make that decision. The only way I would probably start Tony over one of those guys is if Daniel Jones was in and one of those other wide receivers for the Giants, whether it was pick any one of them but one, and then I would consider playing Tony over one of them, and I don't think it's crazy. But that's it. If Daniel Jones isn't the quarterback, I'm out. If all those wide receivers are in, I'm out. I want to see it. Before I throw it out there. And those are 3 great options you have in Metcalf, Claypool, and Smith.
They also have the Rams this week, and so
There you go, as another wrench.
I would want Galladay to be on the field for the coverage draw. If I'm going to play Tony, because if Galladay's out, if all 3 of them are out, you're signing up for a day across from Jalen Ramsey. So that'd be a factor for me too. I mean, if Galladay's healthy and Slayton and Shepard are both out, I think that gives Tony his best opportunity. And at the end of the day, you got to go with your gut. But like if all 3 of those guys are out, I think that volume's going to be offset by Ramsey, and I'd be looking to start Claypool and Smith.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Hey, I just want to say though, look, it's tough for me to talk like this to Dub and to Cameron, who's hanging out with us in our voice chat on Discord, because they know I got Tony, so I'm like a hype man right now for this guy. But Diggs for the Cowboys, the cornerback Diggs. By the way, did you know that was Stephon Diggs' brother? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's proven to be a very good corner in the league, and he has been lights out with a lot of good receivers. I think he leads the league in interceptions. Kadarius Toney went out there and made that dude look stupid. Just flat out stupid. Shaking him out of his cleats. Like when I cornered like that doing it, I was like, okay, what is going on here? Like, how come this guy wasn't talked about more? I don't get it. But I'm still gonna start Metcalf, Claypool, and Smith over Tony this week if the situation doesn't work out perfectly for him. All right, we've talked enough about Tony.
Well, and Claypool and Smith have good matchups too. So I mean, that's a factor too. It's not like
and they're really good players too.
Yeah. Schultz or Hockenson rest of season, Kellen. I'm saying Hockenson. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's the only real threat down the field. You got the running backs that are getting catches out of the backfield, and that helps the offense, but it doesn't help Hockenson. So like he's going down the field and he's getting the attention. He's even said he's getting the attention. I'm hoping that changes a little bit when Darrell Williams comes back. But I mean, it's a situation where like Hawkinson's the best receiver down the field and everyone knows it, and it's good and it's bad at the same time. But I don't see a world where Hockenson finishes behind Schultz for a season total.
No, I know it feels really. I know you want to go. You probably want to go Schultz right now because it's really hard not to be in the moment in fantasy. Like you just look at the very recent production the last week, 2 weeks, and you want to go with that and feel like that's the way it's going to be. But you have to do your best to not be week to week on that kind of thing. It's good to be ahead of stuff too, so it's a balance. But talking to a guy like Hockenson, I don't think there's only a handful of tight ends that I would put ahead of him still for the rest of the season, and they're probably the obvious names that you already know. And Schultz is not one of them, but Schultz has been great. And I lost Logan Thomas. I picked up Schultz. I'm very happy I have him. Going to continue to play him, but if I could trade Schultz for Hockenson straight up right now, I would probably do that.
It's tough. I mean, there's just moments where it doesn't always feel great. I mean, Hockenson, let's talk about it like this. Hockenson was a guy that we've watched develop each year. He's gotten a little bit better. And last year, I think he finished as high as tight end 3 behind Waller and Kelsey, but Kittle was out. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, well, we kind of expected that Kittle was going to be in that top 3 still, and then he hasn't done that, and now he's hurt again. And so it was like Hockenson and Mark Andrews were in that next group, and they were considered to be like right behind those guys. But Hockenson didn't really like show out very often last year. Hawkinson was an 8 to 10 point guy every week. He was getting the volume and he was consistent, and that's where he made his living. And then it was like when we got to like week 12, we were looking back on it and saying, "Man, this dude scored a lot of points." But if you had Hawkinson last year for 12 weeks, you didn't feel good. You felt you had mixed feelings on it. You're like, "Okay, well, he's been scoring, but I think there might be some more upside out there." And you were thinking back and forth just like you might be now. So I guess I'm saying I'm not moving the needle too much on Hawkinson anyway, because he hasn't been that guy that'll go out and get you 28 points like Waller or Kelsey. It's been more like our floor is probably 6 to 8 points, and we have a chance for 15, 18 maybe here and there, but like really we're here for it every week is kind of who he's been.
Right. Agreed. CD, so CD Lamb and Schultz for Ridley. Hawk is my other tight end. I like where your head's at with shipping one of them, trading one of those tight ends, and trying to get an upgrade. But I don't think it's Ridley. Not for that price. I'll let Dub speak here in a second on his opinion of it. My opinion of it is, I think that CD and Ridley are close enough. Ridley is out for a personal reason. Dub and I talked about this on the top of the stream, but we don't understand anything about the situation, what that means, what's going on there. I assume like he'll be back probably just this week, but I don't think we have an update.
No, and they've got the bye this week too, so I don't know if we'll have an update for a while because there's not really like a pressing like need.
Okay, right, yeah. So that situation's in limbo, and Hawkinson himself, you could maybe say that the reason for his lack of production recently is the defensive focus on him, but it also could be at least some percentage of that reason could be because of the fact that he's been hurt, banged up, he's been questionable. He hasn't been practicing, but then he plays in the games. Because of that reason, too, I kind of don't hate the idea of having some insurance at the tight end position at the same time.
Yeah.
So the fact that you got Schultz that's playing well, that gives you some insurance at the tight end position, and the CD to Ridley is not enough of a jump for me to want to do that.
No, I agree. And I mean, the thing is like, you have
and
CD,
you
so
happen to
you're
be
down
talking
on
to
CD.
big CD Lamb fans, too, so.
Yeah. I'm big on CD, but
yeah.
The thing is if you have CD, so you're down on CD. If you had Ridley, you'd feel the same way about Ridley. And we've talked about it,
Right.
and there is value on new faces. Like I'm totally down with that. Where it's like, hey man, yeah, you've been doing that for me, and I feel like I haven't been dealing with that with Ridley. Somebody else has, and like I think it's fair to value Ridley a little higher than CD right now, but Here's the thing too. If you're in a keeper league, I've talked about this a little bit, I think off stream, but I'm more interested in CD Lamb in like keeper league than I am Ridley, because like Atlanta probably has a change at quarterback coming before too long. I know Cam really wants to see that happen, and we don't know what that's going to look like. There are a lot more misses at the quarterback position than hits, and CD has Dak for a while, so I like CD long term. If you're in a keeper league, I'm holding on to CD over Ridley every day of the week. I think right now they're valued very close in redraft leagues, but CD by a bit.
Yep, very close in redraft, and if it's keeper, not even close for me. I want CD. I guess it's fairly close. I mean, Ridley's really young and he's really good, but it's just the Matt Ryan problem.
Yeah,
where you got somebody like a young quarterback like Dak that's very capable. I have wide receiver university on my team, and yes, you do, with DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Stephon Diggs, Corey Davis, Jacoby Myers. I have Chubbs. I have Chubb and Henderson as my backs. Noteworthy backups. Do I trade a wide receiver for a running back? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you do. Yes. But I can't tell you who specifically to go out and get, because that's always so difficult because it's always dependent on roster construction of the team you're trying to trade with. But yeah, I think you should look into that. If you don't have anybody behind Chubb and Henderson, you should be looking at that.
And the real thing right now is like, there's a couple guys that cross my mind for like budget ideas, because the thing is like you have Diggs, and right now he's more name value than production. Like Hopkins, DJ Moore, and Mike Williams you listed before him, and I think that's rightfully so. but last year Diggs was like wide receiver number 1 by a stretch. So like I think Diggs still has some value in the trade market. So you have a couple ways that I'd be thinking about going with this. I would be either thinking, do I think Diggs is going to be what he was last year going forward, or do I think that we've seen that, like, do I think that what we've seen so far this year is more of what we can expect? And then however you feel about that would let me know what you want to do. If you think that Diggs has more to offer for the rest of the season, then you might be more interested in moving one of the other guys because you can get more value for him. Obviously, you would ask for a great amount in return for any of those other 3 guys. But then I was thinking, like, well, what if I could move? What could I get for, like, Corey Davis, right? Because I think Corey Davis is a good receiver, and I think he's been consistent and has some value. And then I started thinking, like, does that put you in, like, a Myles Gaskin or Miles Sanders territory? And what kind of value does that offer you? And the answer for me is, like, for insurance purposes, I'm not sure that it's great because they've been inconsistent. But I'm kind of wondering, like, is that, I don't know. Like, I guess those are just the names that popped up. What do you think? Like, Corey Davis is a guy that I started thinking, like, what could I get for him? And those are just the names that popped up for me.
Leonard Fournette.
You think?
Could you get Leonard Fournette for Corey Davis right now?
I think that'd be tough. But I also think it's because
Probably.
people put the running backs on the pedestal. I don't know that it's a terrible value. It's just more perception.
I know. At least in the leagues we play in, that's how it is. The running back, it's not. That's why it's so hard to trade wide receivers for running backs, because people put that extra little bit on the running back because of the position and how scarce it is. You always have to end up giving up more than you want to.
What about like an Arizona running back? And I like both of
Chase
them
Edmonds?
for what they are. But yeah, like a Connor or an Edmonds for an insurance thing.
I'd probably, not that I think Chase Edmonds is some game breaker, like unbelievable running back, but that offense. I know they didn't have his highest scoring game this past week, but that offense in general is a great offense to be tied to. One of only a handful that like is at a tier of their own, a league of their own. And Edmonds is involved in the passing game at all times. So, like, I mean, especially if this was full PPR, I would do a Corey Davis for Chase Edmonds.
And the odds are it's early enough that rosters haven't changed a ton. I don't think that whoever drafted Chase Edmonds has a couple starters ahead of him. I think he was going late enough in drafts that unless they have one of the guys that, you know, recently got hurt or, you know, had some major issues, they shouldn't be leaning on Chase Edmonds too heavily right now either. Like, I think that should be, I think it's more likely that he's, you know, an expendable or a tradable piece for the team that has him.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of running backs right now, and that makes sense to me. Something along that line that I think is realistic you could do. I'm seeing because you start getting into the territory of like rentals with guys like Darrell Williams, which are not long-term solutions. So you don't want that. This is just like this week I'm looking at it. And then after you get there, you get into the DeAndre Swift, Leonard Fournette range, and maybe you can't make that happen. And so if you can't, like, that range, that Chase Edmonds range makes sense. It seems like what we're getting at probably is we would prefer to hold on to those top tier wide receivers you have, that big group there of 4, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Diggs. Like, if you can hold on to them, try to do that. And I think Corey Davis just had another touchdown, and it was at the end of the game. It was garbage time. If you can capitalize on just the box score for him and get some good value for a running back position, I would do it.
For sure. And I think you really want to add that insurance running back. I think Henderson's going to be good when he's out there. I would just personally be concerned if you have nobody that you trust behind those two.
Are you here, Cameron?
Yep.
I mean, this guy is a self-proclaimed wide receiver university over here.
Oof.
And I feel like...
Are you looking at my bench right now?
No, I feel like we can't answer a wide receiver specific question without you chiming in.
Oh man.
So if you had DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Stephon Diggs, Corey Davis, Jacoby Myers, and you needed another running back. Now, this sounds an awful lot like a situation you could relate to on a year-to-year basis. You're the wide receiver guy.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to move one of those Corey Davis, Jacoby Myers types and get a lesser than running back that you know like you can feel like pretty safe with? Or would you trade one of those big dogs?
Personally, I would probably not trade Diggs, Williams, or Hopkins for a running back if that was my team. I would not be opposed to going like a DJ Moore or Corey Davis, but also, feel me here, throwing it with a Henderson and getting some type of
get
decent
crazy.
running back.
I mean, you better get a badass running back if you're going to trade DJ Moore and Darrell Henderson.
You should be picking who you want for those two right now.
But that's what I'm saying. If you could do something
this
like
dude's
that.
got to watch for Carolina. Unbelievable. This DJ Moore hate. You need to watch that boy play some football.
No, I love him. I think he's great too. But, I mean, when you're talking about those other three, I'm really just looking at the quarterback alone feeding them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that any running back is going to make up for that. No, I wouldn't mind trading more straight up for a running back. I don't think a Corey Davis you're going to get enough that it really is going to matter.
Yeah, you may not.
But no, I really wouldn't be opposed to looking at a team that doesn't have receivers and going like a Myers and Henderson or Davis and Henderson for a decent running back and just calling it a day.
Well, what are you saying what is an example? Like, who are you saying decent? Because, like, Henderson, I think when he's playing is going to be pretty decent.
No, I 100% do too. I think that if you're trading Henderson with a Davis, you're looking at a team that needs a receiver, has probably two good running backs, and would take that trade as bettering their team, but losing overall in the top tier trade there. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can get like a Zeke or something for him. I mean, you might depending on who you're trading with. But if you could get some type of RB1 in that aspect, I would do it.
I mean, that's an interesting point to bring up because we've been kind of down on Zeke up until, I mean, we gave him credit for the week he had 2 weeks ago, but like he did it again. Like, is Zeke somebody that? I mean, the thing is, the more he produces, the harder he'll be to get. But like, is he somebody that we're interested in obtaining now? Because I'm down with that overall. But like, have we changed enough on that?
I would rather have Darrell Henderson and DJ Moore over just Zeke.
Yeah.
I think if you're trading those, if you were doing like in that trade, you better literally be able to get the top. In my opinion.
I mean, think of it as if this was your team, and most leagues are not like us where we run 3 receivers and a flex. So, if you're playing Williams, Diggs, and Hopkins, and you're playing Henderson and who was the other one? Chubb?
Yeah.
I mean, would you rather lose, like say you were going into the playoffs, you already know you're getting there, like with this team. Would you rather have a Chubb and Zeke with those 3 receivers?
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't
that's really the question.
I don't think Darrell Henderson and Zeke Elliott season long, if you could take injuries out of the equation, which is a caveat. But I don't think they're that far off because Zeke is still in a timeshare. Zeke's had a couple real good weeks. And, I mean, we were talking about Zeke last week, and Dubs was naming off some players, some running backs that I would rather have over Zeke. And we had to get all the way up to Jonathan Taylor before I took a running back over Zeke. All those other names I said no, I'd rather have Zeke. So I still really like him.
No, I feel you. I mean, Zeke might be the bad target for this topic, I guess.
But even like Najee Harris, like I wouldn't do it for that. I wouldn't do it for maybe Aaron Jones. You might be getting to that territory then.
Right.
Where I might do
That's
it.
what I'm saying. If it's worth it, I would do it.
Is it okay to have Jones and Devontae on the same team? Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it depends on your roster comp and how you're leaning on those players. But like, I did a draft that I was taking very serious, where I ended up with 3 Vikings on my team. Like, I'm not out on I'm not out on having guys from the same team. There's an argument to be made that an offense can only score so much, and I get that. But like, I had Jefferson as my wide receiver one, where I went heavy on running backs and grabbed a tight end early. And I went Jefferson with my wide receiver one, and I had Adam Thielen as my third receiver, and Dalvin Cook was my starting running back. And I kind of laughed about it afterwards, but I was very happy. I was very okay with having three guys from the same team on my starting lineup. But it's a lot of where you're relying on those guys. But Jones and Devontae, if that's your RB1 and receiver one, you're still probably doing all right, right?
Well, yeah, you're killing it. The idea with a situation like that is Aaron Jones and Davante Adams are main components, main focal points of that offense that's led by Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, we all know Aaron Jones is an RB1. We all know Davante Adams might be the overall wide receiver one. I would love to have both those guys on my team. Wouldn't bother me at all. Trade Debo and Emmanuel Sanders for Calvin Ridley. Ooh,
I'm not.
That's a tough one though.
You're signing up for a problem right now, and you've got two guys that are producing. The thing is Debo and Ridley are both on bye this week, so like that part kind of cancels out too. But we were talking about Garoppolo. Looks like he's going to be back after the bye, and Debo has been like crushing it.
Yeah.
I don't want to sign up for that unless you feel really good about Ridley's rest of season and you're like 4-1 or 5-0 right now. Like I'm not adding. I don't like buying trouble.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though too, is like we've had a few questions from different people about Ridley. It's because Ridley is the Ridley owner. I mean, you have him, and it's in a keeper league for you in that league, so there's just another layer added to it. But if you pictured yourself in a redraft league and you had Ridley, how you would probably feel about him. I imagine that the people that have Ridley would be interested in listening to offers. And people that don't have Ridley, that haven't sat through that because they haven't had him on their roster, they're looking at him as a prime candidate as a buy low. And I agree that he probably is, because I still do think it's going to get better for him. But yeah, I don't like that we don't know what's going on right now with him specifically. Like, we don't know what that situation is. And Debo's been so good. Is Debo like a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy right now? And we're 5 weeks in? I'd have to look real quick. But when I say like buy low, I don't know how much of a buy low that really is when you have to give up a Debo and an Emmanuel Sanders. Would Debo be considered a wide receiver one with Lance?
Debo's 4th in our league right now and a half a PPR for all wide receivers.
He's 4th, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Debo has more fantasy points so far this season than guys like Davante Adams, Jamar Chase, that's went off with all these touchdowns, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson. Yeah. I don't know that I would trade both those guys for Ridley, but I'm not completely against it, I will say, and I do like the idea behind buying Ridley low. I do like that idea.
I mean, I would start with less. Would make me feel better about it. Like, why wouldn't you be able to get a Debo for Ridley straight up right now? And it's at least worth offering.
Because in a regular redraft league, yeah. Yeah.
See where they're at with that. Plus, they're both on bye, so that cancels out. One thing I do like to do that I think means a lot more for a fantasy team than we might think on the surface is getting away from bye weeks too. So, like, the thing is right now you have both and you have Sanders to plug in. If you trade them both, then you have Ridley and you don't have your fill-in for the bye week either. So, like, this is something you might come back to next week too. And, like, nothing's going to change as far as value goes because 2 of those guys didn't play. But then you can say, if you had to add Sanders to that deal too, and you feel good about this personally, then why not wait one more week, and then you don't have to deal with the bye week either. So that's a little extra value on your end if you get to plug Sanders in this week, and you still get the guy you want, next week.
Yeah, it's fair. And would Debo be considered a wide receiver one even with Lance? I don't know. Maybe. Um, I'm gonna be hesitant to call Debo for season long a wide receiver one, but at the very least he's a wide receiver two.
Yeah, I think
I'm just concerned with Trey Lance a little bit. What he may or may not be able to do this first year.
well, with the
throwing the ball.
production he's had with Garoppolo, I want that to stay the same. I think
Right.
just because the production's been so high, you're expecting a drop off if there's a change at quarterback, and I don't care who it is. Like, if you have something that's working this well and it changes, you have to expect it to you have to expect it to drop off
Yep.
a little bit.
Jake Spagnola coming in with the whole Lions team for the whole Bears team. Would you make that trade if you were the Lions? Is there a real world scenario where we can determine which team is better? They did play each other, right? This season already. They play each other again, obviously. I don't would you the whole Lions team for the whole Bears team, would you make that trade if you were the Lions? Would you, Dub?
Would I make that trade? Probably not.
The whole
Because-
roster for the whole roster?
No way, because we've got all those extra draft picks from like the Stafford trade and all that. So like our roster's where it should be for what we're set up to do. I like the pieces you guys have, like
Fair.
on the surface, but overall for
Yeah, you
like
got that
team
draft
build,
stock,
yeah,
draft capital.
yeah, we're not trying to spend on guys like Khalil Mack over here. All right, we're over here, we're over here taking our L's. Okay, we're gonna get another early draft
Nah,
pick.
I mean,
Couple
Detroit
min-
would just bring Mac over and be like, "Yeah, bro, we'll pay you for sure," and then they'll just make him retire and not pay him.
I mean, the reality is that Khalil Mack changing teams, like, he might just come in and win 3 games for us, because, like, that's what he does when he showed up to Chicago and just manhandled an entire offense for, like, a month.
I did.
I mean, like, that alone, can we trade our team for Khalil Mack, maybe? And then that way, like, the salary's offset, the rest of it's a wash. Maybe we can keep, like, Hawkinson, too. I like you.
We'll trade everybody. All 50 well, it actually goes deeper than that, right? That's just who's active on game day. We'll trade all 65 players away, but we keep Hawkinson.
Yeah, and we just want Mac.
We just want Mac.
It's been rough,
Jared Goff
man.
going to the practice squad.
It's been rough for both of us out there. I know.
It's been tough. It's for sure. Been a tough decade plus.
You know what I hate watching the games from a Lions fan standpoint, watching the Lions games, is that they're actually putting these graphics up, making it look like Goff is an efficient quarterback. And they're showing numbers like 7 touchdowns to 1 pick, and they're showing like his completions, and they're saying like, well, this is the first time a quarterback's done this in his first 4 games on a new team, and it's like they're really deep diving on this. But what they're not talking about is that Goff is fumbling like twice a game. So like, yeah, he's only thrown a couple picks so far this year, but he's fumbled like 8 times, and nobody wants to talk about it.
It's a lot of fumbles.
Dude,
There's a lot of fumbles.
not literally. Well, actually, maybe literally. We've recovered some of them, okay? But like, seriously, he's put the ball on the floor like 6 to 8 times.
Damn. Would you trade Ridley and Godwin for Devontae? I'm not sure which side you're talking about, but whatever side has Devontae, that's the side that I want. And with Jones Jr., are you talking about like Tony Jones Jr.?
Marvin, I think. I would assume.
Oh, Marvin Jones.
Wait, he's a senior.
Is he?
Who's Jones here?
Is Marvin a senior? No, he's a junior.
Is he?
Yeah.
So is it Marvin
yeah,
Jones?
that makes more sense. Yeah. Ridley and Godwin for Devontae and Marvin Jones. So I want the Devontae Marvin Jones side of that.
Do you?
Devontae and Marvin Jones?
I love some Devontae Adams, but Godwin, I mean, he's no bum.
No,
he's not getting the love, but
Ridley and Godwin are both better, much better than Marvin Jones. But Devontae Adams is also that much different from Ridley and Godwin to me. Devontae is to me, it's like Devontae, Tyreek Hill, maybe I'm forgetting one of them. But if you had like a tier, it was the top dudes, and they're separated. They're separate from everyone else.
Hopkins, Metcalf, something like that. That's most people's, I think, like top.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I have DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm not even putting him in that same tier. He's still very good. I think he showed that last week when they needed him. When they needed plays, they threw it to him. But just the way that offense functions, it's just not the same.
Cooper Kupp?
Nah.
Fantasy aspect, maybe, but dude, I feel you though. I don't think anyone compares to Devontae Adams.
Yeah, probably
Production.
not.
I mean, Tyreek Hill. I mean,
He's a
I'm
little
not
more up and
dogging.
down, but his games are
Yeah,
just so huge, and
yeah.
he
I'm not
used he
dogging him
wasn't
by any
always
means,
like that. He
but
used to be
dude,
consistent.
they've been locking him down a little bit more. Like you just don't see that with Adams because they throw everything to Adams. If they are
Yeah.
doubling him, they'll get him inside. They work him any way they need to. Like they don't treat any of these other guys like that, like
For
Hopkins
me,
or any of them.
right. I will say for me, Justin Jefferson is starting to approach that territory. I think he's just so damn good. There's some really good wide receivers out there in the league that don't have the numbers of production to back them. Davante Adams has both. Very good player in the production. But you have guys like Terry McLaurin that are great players, and he's putting up some numbers too, but just not week in, week out. But a phenomenal player. Yeah. So you guys would rather have Ridley and Godwin?
I think
I
so.
don't know. I don't know.
I mean, Devontae
I
Adams
think,
is hard to get. Like, you have to give up something to get him.
yeah. And if it was
Yeah.
our keeper league, cool. I would like Adams, but
Roy Jones. KB, stop. Forgot how that song went. Traded Gaskin, Chuba, Christian Kirk, Knox, and Emmanuel Sanders for Scary Terry, and TJ Hawkinson. How did I do? Okay, let me go through this again. Christian Kirk, Gaskin, Chuba. I mean, Chuba was a rental. Gaskin, I don't give a shit about. As far as letting him go, cool with that. Christian Kirk, don't care. He's gonna have some good weeks. Gonna disappear some weeks, like a lot of those receivers in Arizona. Knox has been crushing it, and Emmanuel Sanders has been really solid. But you got Scary Terry, who's a legit wide receiver one. Dude's really good. And you got TJ Hawkinson. I think season long, I like it. I think I actually like it.
Yeah. Same. I mean, you don't know what you're getting out of Gaskins. Chuba might not play another game this year, theoretically. Right. Yeah, you got some good value out of there. I mean, that whoever took that trade has to cut like 3 guys to make that work too. So you might have some waiver opportunities here.
Take my 12 players for your 2. I like it. What's most crazy to me is my biggest and only hesitation there was, man, Knox has been crushing it. Hawkinson's been banged up and not producing, which is crazy after just another week. That's where we're at. But nah, season long, Hawkinson over Knox. Maybe we regret that at the end of the year. We'll see. But Hawkinson, and then Terry McLaurin is great.
Oh yeah.
I like Hawkinson a lot, but man, dude, Josh Allen.
Oh, I know. He's something else. Dude's crazy.
Dude, he's insane. He's looked really good.
Yeah.
We were talking about some tight end comparisons here too, and there were a few. I don't know. We've kind of been feeding the 0 tight end draft strategy because we brought it up early. I think that's been something we've tried to follow up on pretty good. Knox and Schultz were our picks last week, and they've looked pretty good. A couple other guys that might be worth monitoring. We've mentioned a couple of these names already, but Hunter Henry had a game, and you had said Jonnu Smith did a lot of blocking. Hunter Henry, on a 5-week sample now, you look at, and he's had one of his better games this week, but the rest of these weeks weren't goose eggs either. He's been producing. There's been a little consistency, and he's somebody that I think is starting to get interesting. If you don't have a good option there, he's kind of emerging. David Njoku had quite a game, and that was seemingly kind of random, but his athleticism, I don't know. He kind of seems like he draws you in once a year, and you don't really know what to think. But like, if you don't have anybody, I mean, I think this might be worth monitoring. Like Landry's out, there's some opportunities there. DPJ and Higgins haven't really taken over. OBJ, they're saying he's playing banged up a little bit, and that might be part of his lack of production. But there's some opportunity there in Cleveland's offense. Why wouldn't it be? David Njoku, I guess, is the best argument for it.
That's the most frustrating thing is it should be. But they don't involve the guy week in and week out. Maybe this is the start of it. Maybe. I feel like fool me once, and this is fool me 30 times over the course of Njoku's career. But yeah, man, get the guy involved more. What did he do? 149 yards, 7 catches. Come on, man, get that dude the ball more in open space. He's such a freak athlete.
Yeah, he's only owned in 2.2% of leagues right now, and you could count on one hand how many tight ends in the league you think could put up those kind of numbers. I mean, really, like, even just having the ability to score that many points is unique at that position. So I think that's worth monitoring, probably worth rostering just to see how it plays out. I mean, if you're like Connor, I love that. You pick up a tight end, he has a good week, he's been looking good so far, and then you flip it for some trade value. There's opportunity there too. So maybe you have Kelsey or Waller, but you have this bench spot that you could be doing more with. I mean, I think it's worth picking up a Henry or an Njoku and seeing what happens.
I like that. I'll mention a couple of them. Zach Ertz, and the only reason I bring him up is because Dallas Goedert is put on the COVID list, and they play on Thursday. So if Goddard is not going to be activated for the game, Zach Ertz and him are both out there a lot, and Hurts targets the tight ends a lot. Obviously, if you remove Goddard from that equation, then Zach Ertz, he feels like he'd be a fairly safe play. It is Tampa Bay. We do expect Tampa Bay to score some points on Philly more than likely. They should be able to do that. We did think they were going to be able to do that against the Patriots too, and it didn't happen. But that might be, a unique situation there. So Zach Ertz, just throwing him out there. Don't love it, but don't hate it either. And then Dan Arnold, I'm not recommending. I'm not saying like anybody should be picking him up right now. But Dan Arnold was traded to Jacksonville. Was that 2 weeks ago or something like that? I think. Yeah. And this past week he had 8 targets, had a pretty productive game. I'll pull it up real quick. 6 catches, 64 yards on 8 targets. They traded for this guy a couple weeks ago, and they got him involved this past week. I don't know if that trend is going to continue, but if we're looking for, just some tight end streamers, things like that, maybe this coming up week or the next few weeks, let's at least pay attention to Dan Arnold and see what he does in the next week or two. But yeah, man, this tight end position's crazy.
They made it a point to go get him, and I mean, he's a football player. It seems like he's out there doing the tough stuff, and we know how Urban Meyer likes those grinders.
Yeah, did Dan Arnold happen to go to Ohio State? Because if so, I would say pick him up, play him. Did you see how he gave Carlos Hyde? Jacksonville needed a touchdown right at the end of the game or towards the end of the game, and they're right near the goal line, and they gave the ball to Carlos Hyde and not James Robinson. And you know how that worked out? It didn't work out. It didn't work out at all.
Dude, some of this is like it's like that. What were we were just talking about, like frustrating backfields. It's this like the Baltimore thing. It's like this veteran respect thing, and I don't know. I think part of it's because like we've been younger guys in the workforce and stuff, but like this whole like veteran respect thing, like I hate because I just wish it was pure football. Like earn your touches. If you're not the dude, I don't care. Appreciate what you've done, but like.
Yeah, I know he sucks, but, he's 30, so he's getting the carry.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good run back at Ohio State. Took us to my first playoff appearance. Nobody cares.
Sit back, young buck. You'll get your time.
Another one that doesn't make sense.
I'm just glad I don't have anybody over there on that team.
Another one in a similar territory, though, as far as like kind of put it on your radar. Don't like add him to your waiver list or anything yet, I don't think. But Mo Alley Cox is somebody I'd mentioned a couple weeks ago that I thought looked better on the field than he did in the stat sheet. and he's put together a couple respectable weeks for the tight end position. He had 2 touchdowns, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and he had like 50 or 60 yards again this last game. So, interesting because they have Jack Doyle, and so he's also kind of a timeshare tight end. But it seems like they're more interested in getting him the ball when he is out there than Jack Doyle or their other options. So.
Yeah.
He's kind of been on my radar, but I'll just mention it again because if we see another couple weeks of decent production or another, 2 touchdown game, obviously we're going to be like, man, Mo Alley Cox might be something. And he had a decent little stretch last year.
He had a good stretch last year. He's good at being way too big and for that reason being open in the red zone, even when he's not open. That's what he can do.
Yeah.
Dude is gigantic.
He's a little
He looks
nimble
like a
for
tight end that
size,
ate a
too.
tight end. I think we covered everybody, man.
Yeah,
Took us a while to get there, but we got it.
it did. And we've got some good options there. I mean, we threw a few tight ends out there, and we're getting to a point where there's some out there. But I think it's important. I guess I didn't mention that part, but like with Kittle being gone, like there's going to be some people looking for tight end options too, and we don't know who's available in what leagues or whatever. I mean, like if Knox or Schultz are still available, we're probably leaning that way. But these are some other options if like things are getting tough.
Both those tight ends got picked up big time this past week, dude. Dalton Schultz went up 60% this last week. He's at 81% owned now. And then Knox, who picked up Knox? Knox went up 63%. He's at 83% owned now.
I didn't realize we had that many people watching our stream.
Right? I know.
Damn.
We're just out here just moving the needle over here.
Yeah. Throw a couple names out there, all of a sudden these guys' ownership's going up 40%, 60%.
Oh, man. Influencing by the millions.
What do we've got? I mean, this is our first week of buys too, so that makes it interesting. What do we got? Bye weeks are Atlanta, New Orleans, New York, and San Francisco. So for fantasy, we're losing Ridley, Pitts, Patterson. We're losing Kamara, Corey Davis, Michael Carter's kind of getting in that territory. Debo. I mean, those are like the big names for fantasy that we don't have available this week, right?
Yeah, I was looking up the teams, so I didn't hear every name you mentioned. Did you mention Pitts? Coming off his game, he's on bye.
Yeah, Pitts, Ridley, and Patterson I mentioned for Atlanta. We're going to be without them.
Yeah.
Kamara.
I don't think you mentioned Fitz.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Run it back. Run it back.
Run it back.
I mean, you weren't outside of Kamara, you weren't starting anybody for the Saints.
No.
And
Corey
the
Davis,
Jets,
maybe Crowder.
Corey Davis, maybe Crowder.
What about that Callaway kid? He had 2 touchdowns again, didn't he?
Was it 2? I know he had over 100 yards, total yards. I mean that guy is he's a weekly RB2 with really high upside till further notice. It doesn't seem like that situation is going to change. Pretty wild that that's the world we're in.
Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns, and Deontay Harris had that big 72-yarder.
Oh, shit. Yes, sir. Well, what do you think? I think we covered just about everything.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched on all the guys we wanted to. I don't know. We did mentioning Callaway is a good idea. He did have 8 targets and the 2 touchdowns. That's somebody that is probably going to go with Jameis Winston up and down. So, I mean, we talked early about it. Josh was pretty big on him early in the season. You just kind of don't know what you're going to get.
His touchdowns were very fluky, especially the one was it might have been at half. If it wasn't, you can picture it. It was one of those bombs in the end zone when there was a bunch of defenders and a bunch of wide receivers, and Callaway he happened to go up and get it.
Yeah, I seen that.
Seems
Did
to
you?
be really good at that type of catch, but for some
Yeah,
reason can't put together much else.
yeah. He
Peyton's
can't
got
do
a.
the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hmm.
No, you're good. I was just saying he can't do the easy stuff. He's
Right.
here for the all.
He
He's
just
here
needs
for
the
the top
very
plays.
he needs the very difficult throws that are 60 yards plus with guys all over him.
Well,
this
Peyton
gonna
just
be
needs to let Winston out of the cage then.
I was gonna say, all he thinks is this gonna be a top 10 play? Nah.
Let Winston. You know what I mean? Callaway can shine.
Mm-hmm. Dubs, did you see? I don't know if you guys mentioned it at all with Hawkinson. Did you see the receiver that had the most targets over there this week?
No, I mentioned Khalif Raymond's name. From watching the game, that's who I would guess had the most targets.
St. Brown had 8. I'm pretty sure.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's put
Yeah.
he's put together a couple good weeks back to back.
Hmm. That little rookie.
Thanks, Dallas. Thanks for stopping in the stream, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we'll probably be good to call it. We will be streaming again on Sunday, Dallas. So come back and hang out with us before the games. We'll figure out that last minute who we're playing, who we're not, who's hurt. With how
Yeah.
many injuries we've got, how many questions we've got, it's going to be a wild Sunday morning.
For sure. Yeah, and we'll do our best, to break down the information. At least I think we do a pretty good job of letting you know if we think something's risky or upside, and do our best to try to figure out, what we can do to get you guys the most points. And it's gonna be a fun and tough one, I think, this coming Sunday. So.
Dude, Sunday's going to be rough.
But looking forward to it. I was breaking down the analytics earlier today. I think this more applies to the people clicking after we're done streaming, but 82% of the people clicking on our videos are not subscribers. So if you're coming through and you're still around, you stuck it out for the end of the video, definitely hit that hit that subscribe button, get some notifications when we go live so you can join us live next time. But we appreciate all the love. We appreciate the comments. We just love having people to talk to, talk fantasy football with. So definitely appreciate it. Hopefully we catch you guys Sunday morning.